I'm not sure if you're old enough to remember when text-based adventure games were a thing. I wanted to try making one in Python and found many good tutorials on YouTube. A lot of these tutorials use if-else statements to control the game's flow. And if you're new to Python and are just getting used to conditional statements like if-elses, while loops, or switch statements, nested if-else statements do the job. Here's my working example, which is based on several tutorials that I've linked in the description. At each step of the game, I ask a question, then give two possible answers. If the player gives an unknown answer, the question just repeats, and the game keeps running. I've also given the player a way to end the game. They can type exit at any point, and the game ends. This is my basic game loop, and I can just keep adding questions and if-else statements to make a complete game, and it works fine. But I know you can already see what's happening with this code. The more questions I add, the more nested if-else statements the code has. It becomes harder to read and harder to debug. In fact, a lot of programmers, including Python programmers, discourage the use of nested if-else statements for this reason. So, how do we fix this? I mentioned before that all the game is doing is it asks a question, then shows the possible answers to that question, and if it receives a valid answer, it then looks for the next question and shows that. And it will keep doing this until it reaches a condition that causes the game to end. Now, any code which does a repeating action is an opportunity to improve the code. I'll show you one way, but I'm not saying it's the best way or the only way. As you go on your game programming journey and maybe turn professional, you'll find much better solutions for controlling how the game flows. I used some Python data structures to rewrite my game. Here, I've converted the questions and answers into a dictionary. A Python dictionary is just a set of unique keys, and every key is related to a value. So, this is a valid dictionary? This one is also valid, but since the keys must be unique, it uses the last value. In my dictionary, the possible answers act as keys, and the next question and possible answers are in a data structure known as a tuple. Before I talk about tuples, I'd like to mention that one way to get a value from a dictionary is to call its get method and give it a key. So, for example, if I call get on my dictionary and give it the start key, it's going to return the question and possible answers associated with the start key. And similarly, if I ask it to get the value for the yes key, it's going to return the question and possible answers for the yes key. A tuple is just a sequence of values. The values can be of different types. Tuples are immutable, meaning you cannot change their values. So they are useful for storing related values which you already know will not change throughout your program. Another thing I like about tuples is you can unpack their values. So if you want to store the first two values of a tuple as separate variables, it's pretty handy. I put the possible answers in a list. A list, like a tuple, is a sequence of values. So this is a list. This is also a list. One cool thing I can do with a list of strings is I can define another string to join the list items together, which, as you'll soon see, will make it easier to display the player's options. Could I also do this with a tuple instead of a list? Yes, but there's a point in my game where there's only one valid answer, and string joining a tuple if there's only one string in the tuple produces a different result from joining a list with only one string in it. I'll leave it to you to try that out and see what happens. So to recap, I have a dictionary where the keys are the answers and their related values are a tuple. The tuple has the next question as a string, and also a list containing the possible answers. Here's what my updated game code looks like. Since the questions are in another file, I imported it. The string start is the key for the first question, so the game uses the dictionary keys to get the next question and answers. The game ends if the player types exit, or if it encounters a question that has no possible answers. Since each question has at most two options to choose from, I can join the list of options with the string or. But this game isn't complete yet because in the first version, I designed the game's flow such that some answers are shared by two different questions. But what the next question is depends on a previous choice made by the player. I'll show you how I solve that in a follow-up video, but for now, I'd love to hear how you would rewrite the if-else statements for this game, so leave me a comment below.